Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. Well, you could take that lovely 13-game winning streak and toss it out the window because the Yankees followed that up with a miserable 7-game losing streak, losing not only just to terrible teams you shouldn't be losing to overall, but looking bad doing it, having bad starting pitching, and now they're in a position where you could almost forget about the AL East. I mean, that's just gone out the window, but you'll just pray to get one of those wild card spots. And of course, last episode I kind of gave you the Yankees' roadmap for success, and of course the Yankees are going to listen to that. So in comes the Baltimore Orioles, probably one of the worst teams in baseball, and of course the team of the Yankees should have swept them, beat the heck out of them, and of course they didn't do that. They lose 2 out of 3, and even the one game they won, that Friday night opener, they were lucky to win that game. I mean, it was a Giancarlo Stanton walk-off hit, which was great, but of course, they could very easily have lost that game, and then you were in a situation where they probably could have even been swept by the Baltimore Orioles. So they dropped 2 out of 3 to the Orioles, again, at home. Next comes up, the Toronto Blue Jays, which, yes, we all discussed that the Toronto always plays the Yankees tough, especially at Yankee Stadium. You figure, all right, 4-game set, you would almost settle for a 2-2 split. Fine, whatever. It's the Toronto Blue Jays. They're a couple games behind the Yankees, nipping on the heels. They're a quality team. You could say, not as good as the Yankees, but a quality team, you'll take a split. But no, the Blue Jays come in here and just wipe the Yankees out in 4 games, a 4-game sweep, and it was historically bad. It was the first time for the Yankees franchise since 1924 that not once did they hold lead at any point of those 4 games with the Blue Jays, and it was the first time since 2003 that the Yankees were swept at home in a 4-game set. So it was a historically bad situation, which has really knocked the Yankees down in the standings where, figure about 2 to 3 weeks left in the season, you're about 10 games behind the Rays. It's just, the AL East right now is not looking as a reasonable or attainable option, where now you're just going to have to hold on with some of those other teams in the wild card spot, which also includes the Toronto Blue Jays, just to get one of those 2 spots. And if you want to take an honest assessment of the team itself right now, you can't see them as a World Series contender. Maybe a wild card team, possibly, but not a World Series contender. So what happened? Things were going great. They're riding high, 13-game win streak. But mainly the reason that things have started crumbling down has been the starting rotation, which has really been hampered bad lately. Now, again, for the most part of the season, starting rotation has been surprisingly good. Again, with a lot of question marks with a rehabbing Kluber and a rehabbing Taillon, pitching for the first time in a couple of seasons, and not sure how Herman was going to be, and Montgomery kind of pitching his first full season since coming back from Tommy John surgery, and the Yankees pretty much held it together with the rotation. But as of late, it's kind of been crumbling down, and that's mainly the reason why the 7-game losing streak came in there. And it starts with the ace, Garrett Cole. Now, you have your ace because usually he's the person who stops a losing streak. We're like, well, okay, you lose 3 games in a row, but we got our ace going on there, and he stops the losing streak. But unfortunately, on the Tuesday, the Tuesday Toronto game, he had to be yanked out, sore hamstring. Now, not to the point where they had to put him on the injured reserve list, but it's a situation now where, hamstring injuries, look, anything with that, especially pitcher, you're pushing off that like that. Even if he's not injured, he can still pitch. You got to assume he's not going to be 100% Cole. So that's the first one. Then you go to Taillon. Turns out in his right ankle, had a torn ligament. So he had to go on the injured reserve list for a while. And now they're treating it with this plasma placement thing there that some players have done. I think Jose Reyes did that when he was with the Mets a couple of years ago. Basically put plasma in there and kind of heals the muscle and bone tissue and all that stuff. So they give him a treatment, but the fact remains that even if he comes back and is pitching again in September, you can assume again it's his pushing off foot, it's going to be hurt, so he's not going to be effective, and it's kind of a blow for the Yankees because really for the second half of the season, you could almost make the case that Taillon was the Yankees' most consistent starting pitcher, even with Cole going down for with the COVID. Taillon stepped in there and did a great job, and you say, all right, great, he earned that kind of number 2 spot, but that's not the case with him now because he's just a bit of a question mark. Probably comes back this season, of course, but probably not going to be as good as he was about a month ago when he was, again, perhaps the Yankees' most consistent pitcher. Then you get over to our good friend Corey Kluber, who, again, in his 3 starts since coming back from his long layoff, hasn't been that effective. Now, again, kind of went in this last episode, that first start against the Angels. Again, I put that a little more on Boone because, again, first start back, he's fatigued a little bit. You should have yanked him out. Boone kind of kept him in there for a little bit, and then he gives up the grand slam. And then his whole box score line looks terrible. But the next 2 starts off of that were impressive of all, and especially the 9-11 game at Citi Field, which we'll get into a little bit later. Again, Yankees give him a big lead, and he just gives 3 runs right back before he can even breathe. So Kluber hasn't been affected at all. And, there's still a few more chances for him to get some starts and build up some arm strength and, kind of get the grip on that slider, whatever's plaguing him. But again, he's just someone you can't really rely on at the situation. And for Jordan Montgomery, he just hasn't been effective lately. Now, no one should really, throw any darts at him because for the first half of the season, he was basically getting 0 run support at all. And so he should have a better record than it reflects. But now, as of late, yes, the offense is a little better for him, but he just hasn't been effective lately. And you got to see it's a situation where, again, as mentioned before, this is his first full season back from, recovering from Tommy John surgery last year. And at some point, you figure he's going to tire, and perhaps now is the case where he's tiring out a little bit. And, and of course, our good friend Nestor Cortez, again, good spots. He's been entertaining, but he's not a real bona fide starting pitcher, that's been doing this for a long while. And after time you keep throwing something out there, they're going to get exposed a little bit. And again, he hasn't been terrible, but again, he hasn't been kind of the guy that jumped on the scene about a month or two ago and kind of became like the fan hero and all that stuff. So this whole starting rotation is crumbling a little bit. And then you kind of back that with some of the issues in the bullpen. And it's just a situation where, yeah, great, you got Rizzo and you got Gallo and you got some guys scoring a little bit of runs, but it's just that the pitching's not able to hold the other teams back, and that's why, great, next thing you know, you're losing 7 games in a row. So some reinforcements are on the way for the starting rotation. Domingo Germán will make 1 start in the minors, the rehab before coming back and joining the major league team. But again, we're just not sure how he's going to be. I mean, he hasn't thrown a pitch in the majors since July 31st when he, again, came up with the shoulder inflammation. So hopefully that's quieted down a little bit and he can come back. But then I'm really sure what role he's going to be in. Possibly start, possibly come out of the bullpen. Is he going to be a long reliever? Is he going to come in for 1 inning? I don't think he's the type of guy that closes games. Again, Yankees are really, you're always sweating it out in the 8th or 9th inning for the Yankees. So they're not sure exactly when he's coming back. I wouldn't mind, again, have him come back this again. If Taillon's going to be out for a little bit and need a little while, then I guess it makes more sense to have Germán be a starter. Because for the Yankees, again, as long as he's not suspended or hurt, he has been a good starter for the Yankees. So I think that's probably the best role for him. Because, again, he's not a guy that comes in there blazing 99 miles per hour to strike guys out. That's not his game. I mean, has a good fastball, but he's more of a starting pitcher that has a number of different weapons in the arsenal to go through a lineup so once or twice. And also rejoining the Yankees has been Michael King. He came off the 60-day IL. Again, he tore a tendon in the middle finger. I'm not sure what he was doing with the middle finger. I'm not going to do that because it's rated R. But anyway, he's been out since July 3rd, but he joins the team. And he's another guy like Germán. He kind of could do different things. I mean, he can spot start. He can come out of the bullpen. I don't think he's the type of guy that you would want to see as a starter. I mean, I'd rather have Germán start than over King. So King probably would just go back into his role of probably just being a long relief guy. Or maybe if a starter just doesn't have it and you have to yank him out in second, have King go 4 innings. That's probably a better role for him. Whereas, again, as I said, Germán is probably better off being a starting pitcher. And jumping over to the bullpen, Loaizica, who's, again, pretty much had a good season for the Yankees and has kind of been their maybe plan B as a closer in certain situations. Been shut down since early September. Again, September 3rd had an MRI, showed rotator cuff strain. So the Yankees have had to shut him down for a while. They assume they're going to get him back sometime this month, but that is kind of a blow because, again, with Chapman always sweating it out there, Loaizica is someone like who could be a plan B now. You don't feel really like that confident in Loaizica, but again, it's better than some other options and sometimes would be a better option than Chapman, but he's going to be out for a while. So, really just takes a toll on those late innings for the Yankees where it's just really just no one really trusts. I mean, Green's kind of been sloppy lately. Now, Albert Abreu's been pretty good, but again, it's only been a short sample size. So, and plus I don't know someone like that with no experience how good they would be in a high-pressure situation and in a big game. So, kind of dicey for the Yankees. Now, again, even though Chapman's getting a little better lately, he's just still just someone that you just got to hold your breath in the end of the game. And now the fact that Loaizica is not there as a safety net is even more scary. So the loss of Loaizica has opened the doors, as I mentioned before, for Albert Abreu, who actually has been pretty good with his fastball, again, almost dialing up there to 99 miles per hour, but also opened the door for Clay Holmes, who you may recall Cashman traded with Pittsburgh to get him over there. Again, just the loss of him and the fact that it, kind of has to move Green down to later innings has opened the door for Holmes and been relatively okay, but again, haven't seen much from it as a resume where you feel confident in him, but it's just good that you have another weapon out there. And unfortunately, Cashman's made some good trades this year, but one of the ones that didn't work out has been Andrew Heaney. I mean, now he came from the Angels, is going to kind of hold the fort down a little bit until Kluber came back, so it wasn't like he was going to be some great long-term solution and like the Yankees that gave up some great prospects for. But pretty much all the major spots he's been in, including the Field of Dreams games. He's been a big disappointment, and he's probably become the fans' #1 enemy. And not like he was coming back this season, but our good friend Zach Britton is getting the Tommy John surgery after all. Now, you may recall a couple of weeks ago they said it wasn't going to be necessary. No one medically said it was suggesting it, but Zach Britton went out to Los Angeles to get the surgery done. It was just going to remove some bone chips initially, so the doctor was kind of looking at it. I was like, you know what? You need the Tommy John. So I guess while they had the hood open in the car, I guess they just did the Tommy John anyway. So now he's out indefinitely. Of course, this season, but a good chunk of 2022 as well. And, in fact, maybe we don't just never see him again pitch as a Yankee. Now, of course, the blame gets shared all around a little bit. It's not all the pitching's fault recently that things have been bad. I mean, the starting pitches hasn't been good. The bullpen, you don't really trust anyone anymore. It's kind of an all or nothing offense when it comes to home run. The outlook isn't good right now. So what was different, again, a few weeks ago, again, when they had the 13-game winning streak? Well, again, you had players in there like Tyler Wade. You had Odor, you had Andrew Velasquez, coming on the scene and is playing a little more small ball, stealing bases, going from first to third, going from second to home. Now, just sitting back and waiting for a game-tying home run, which are good or exciting, but it's not going to happen. It's just not sustainable. And again, with that and the pitching like that, and this is a real bad situation for the Yankees. And again, a lot of the players that came back almost kind of forced those kind of scrappy players away. Gio Urshela came back, Gleyber Torres came back, and frankly, just haven't been good. And Gio Urshela, who again past couple seasons with the Yankees has been pretty good, usually like a 280, 290 hitter, barely hitting about 250, and just really hasn't been the same player just from a season or two ago when he just came onto the scene. I was like, wow, what a great trade by Cashman. Gets this nobody guy, and he's like a borderline all-star. That guy hasn't been really there this season, and Gleyber Torres as well. And him coming back kind of put Velasquez back on the bench, and Gleyber, gets a little hit there, but he just still really hasn't been that great since coming back, and really hasn't been that great at all this season. And the only problem is that Gleyber and Gio, that it's not the same scrappy player that a Wade or a Velasquez would be, and that's just why they're not playing that little small ball, and it's just all reliant on the home run. Now, I'm not saying that Velasquez should start every game or that Wade should start every game, because they are what they are. They're kind of the high-ranked players, but at this point in the season, if you're fighting to win games, I mean, you got to put your best lineup out there that can at least score some runs and make it interesting. And it just seems like Boone just wants to stick with the usual guys that he's kind of done with the whole season. I guess minus Rizzo and Gallo, because again, they're big name players. You bought them in, you kind of have to put them in there. But other than that, it doesn't seem like Boone just really want to inject someone else, or just maybe take someone out of the lineup, just maybe motivates and make him a better play. He kind of sticks with the same lineup, and that's just why it's this feast of famine with offense. If they just don't hit home runs, there's no runs on the board. Now, in Boone's defense, you take a player like Higashioka, backup catcher for the Yankees, and of course, when Sanchez always has a problem, everyone's like, oh, just put Higgy in there, give him the starting job. Well, Higgy's hitting under 200, so when you take a player who's normally not a starter and then start him every day, or start him, give him a bunch of starts per week, they get exposed, and that's kind of where the problem is. So in Boone's defense, a little bit, if you put Wade in there every day, yeah, he's going to have some good moments, he's going to steal some bases, he's going to give you some hustle and all that stuff like that. But again, he's not going to hit, 275. He's not going to hit 300 like that. So that's kind of why you have to put someone like a Gio Urshela out there, where even though he's not hitting right now, he has the capability of hitting 290 or 300 because we've seen him before. And just getting back to the catcher situation with Sanchez, it's getting really brutal now. Like, okay, he's a little better than 200. He's like around, hovering around 210. Great, wow. That's still terrible. But defensively, he's been a mess. And of course, the opening night of that weekend series against the Mets, the Friday night is absolutely brutal. First of all, so you have the throw from Joey Gallo that should have nailed Villard home. Throw came plenty of times, so Sanchez is sitting there with the ball, and literally Villard slides on him like a cartoon, and he goes over tail like that. It's like this brutal play, very embarrassing. And then it's the rest of the night, a lot of balls that plays at home have thrown to him, and maybe not, they weren't the greatest throws, so cut him a little slack there, but he's just a terrible defensive catcher. And I think the writing's on the wall now that, especially if they don't make the playoffs at all, or even if they do make playoffs, this is probably his last season in the Yankees. I can't see them just evaluate him this season, wanting to bring him back. Yeah, he's hit over 20 home runs. That's great and all that stuff. But again, barely a 200 hitter, a lot of strikeouts, and just very sloppy defense. And it's just kind of unfortunate. I thought he would have a much better season than this, and I've said, give him a chance, give him another chance, give him another chance. But at this point, he's 28 years old. I mean, this is what he is. I don't think he's going to get that much better defensively all of a sudden, like turn on a switch. Now, if he's like 23 years old and kind of sloppy a little bit, and or, like Gleyber Torres is about 23, 24, so you figure, all right, he can still bounce back a little bit. But Sanchez now, 28, and we've been seeing this for a while, just this repeat of these head gaffes and these defensive miscues and this, just be almost like an automatic strikeout almost all the time at the plate, that I can't see them bringing him back. So very unlikely for him to come back. And again, kind of a shame there because, and he was kind of that part of that young core that came up in 2016, 2017. You figure these guys will be the new core four and be together, but he might be the first one of these guys to drop off. Probably after that follow-up, you see Gleyber if he kind of doesn't, clean up his act as well. So in that brutal game, with Sanchez, didn't take out Villar. The Yankees lose 10-3. This get destroyed. It was very embarrassing for the Yankees. So they would hold a team meeting after that, and it was actually their second meeting of the week. So obviously the first one just didn't stick with it. So they would come back, win the second game. That's great like that. But this shows the grabbing for straws here. Now I want to be all negative, so there are some positives we could think of this. I mean, they're going to be in a wild card race. Now you look at the teams they're competing against for those two spots: the Boston Red Sox, Toronto Blue Jays, Oakland, and probably Seattle. So if you look at all those teams now, all things standing equal, even with all the problems the Yankees have, still think they're the better of those four teams. So they really no one to blame with themselves if they can't get the back. And again, they're getting some players back recently, so things should get a little bit better. Even though you're still like kind of panicking about not even making the playoffs, but they are better than Toronto. I think they are better than Boston, and Boston's going to take a little bit of a hit because Chris Sale, he tests positive for COVID, so he's put on the protocol, so he'll be out for a while. So that would only benefit the Yankees, I think. And of course, Oakland, Seattle, good teams, but I think again the Yankees are better than those two teams. So the Yankees really should get one of those two spots. Again, it's not going to be easy, but again, the only good news there is that they're probably better than those four other teams that they're competing against. And after that brutal 10-3 loss came the big 9/11 game. As I said, it was the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Played on the Saturday night between the Mets and Yankees fittingly. And again, it was kind of everything you thought it would be. A pretty big ceremony on the field. They had Joe Torre and Bobby Valentine, who were the managers at the time for both respective teams, throughout the first pitch. And of course, they had a lot of the FDNY and the Port Authority Police, and NYPD out there, and the flags and the bagpipes, and it was all the spectacle you would think was going to be. And of course, kind of interesting moment. They had both like the Yankees and Mets, both the roster teams has come together and just shake hands and stuff all on the field, which is apparently what the Mets and Braves did on that game. Again, the famous first game back where Piazza hit that big home run against the Braves. So they kind of replicated that whole thing. And the game itself, interesting enough, it was pretty much, if you want to like bottle up and symbolize what this Yankee team is right now, that was pretty much all it to a T. I mean, it was bad starting pitching, home runs only for offense pretty much, a little bit of luck, and just Chapman barely squeaking out of there, getting a pop-up with a runner on third base, and you're just kind of sweating it out. I mean, everything about that was just typically the way this Yankee team is right now. So, of course, I mentioned before, very home run happy. If they don't hit a home run, they don't score offense. So, of course, what I do. So, Higgy starts the game off, 2-run home run, gives the Yankees a 2-0 lead. You feel great. Gaudy's up with LeMahieu on first base. Gaudy hits a 2-run home run, so great, another home run. So now you're looking at 4-0. Judge comes up next. What do you think he's going to do? Of course, home run. So Yankees take a 5-0 lead, and you're kind of sitting pretty a little bit, but you kind of figure you've seen this movie before. How many times, you get a big lead, and it's like you call the dogs off, and you just, don't have the same intensity anymore, and the other team starts chipping away, and then next thing you know, you lose a game like, 10-7. Happens all the time. Happens to, Yankees all the time, seemingly. And of course, right in the bottom of the frame, as I mentioned before, Kluber gives 3 runs right back to the team. Eventually, they claw back for 5-4, tie at 5-5, and then the Mets go ahead and take a 7-5 lead. And it's like, there you go. You knew it was going to happen. They get it to a 5-0 lead, and they do nothing. And for the Yankees, again, since that Judge home run, they go 16 batters, just go straight down, nothing. No hits, no walks, no rallies, nothing. Just go down. They'll go down until, again, finally, Judge hits another 2-run home run to tie the game 7-7. And then, of course, the Yankees got to get a little rally going with 2 runners on. Luke Voigt hitting with 1 out, a pinch hitter. Now, it's a situation like that. If he hits the ball on the floor, it's going to be a double play. Luke Voigt's slow as a turtle. And what he does, he hits a rocket to shortstop. So it goes Lindor to Baez to get the 1 out. Now, it should have been an easy throw to first base. Voigt's, again, not the fastest guy in the world. Baez I don't know what happened to him. He lose grip the ball, throws a bad ball to first base. Ball goes over the first baseman's head, and then Velasquez comes around to score, giving the Yankees an 8-7 win. But if you look at the situation, any like 99 times out of 100, that would have just been a routine double play, and the Yankees just don't score that inning, and it's 7-7, and probably in the bottom of the 8th or the bottom of the 9th, the Mets get a walk-off home run and win the game. And I mean, that's just really, the Yankees was very lucky to win that particular game. But again, it's just indicative of how they've been the whole season. Again, just only pretty much getting those home runs, and if they weren't getting home runs, you get 16 guys go down in a row like nothing. So it was good to get the win, and it's just, I guess a good feel, good win just because the whole 9/11 factor, and the fans went into it, and this all that's going on in the country at the time, the whole Afghanistan issue going on right now, COVID's still running wild, and all the issues going on with mask mandates and vaccine mandates and all this stuff. And of course, looking back at 2 decades ago on the morning of 9/11, so you have all that just circulating in the air like that. And it was just to get the win and snap that 7-game losing streak was a great moment for the Yankees. And again, if you look at you always say your latest win is always your best win of the season, but of the whole season, that was probably the most. I mean, a non-playoff, type of regular season win you could get was probably that game, and it was good that this came out in it. And good, good game for Judge. Not only hit for the 2 home runs early in the game, bolt that hit off the wall, might have saved it from being a home run, even though it ended up being a double, just because he's so tall. And then later in the game, it was the top of the 9th. Judge makes a great diving catch going forward off of Baez, robbing him of what could have been a single, possibly a double. And again, if that ball even gets by Judge as he dives forward, maybe an inside of park home run. So good game for Judge defensively, and of course at the bat with the home run, a good win. But again, just so symbolic how this team is right now. Now, one Yankee who was always a thorn in the Mets' side for all these different Subway Series, whether it was regular season or postseason, has been Derek Jeter, and finally inducted this month in the Baseball Hall of Fame on September 8th in a ceremony, of course, in Cooperstown, New York, along with Larry Walker, who, again, pretty good player, but of course, it's Jeter's show. Now, his induction was supposed to be last year, but of course, with COVID and everything, that got canceled and pushed back till, after Labor Day, which is kind of weird because usually the Baseball Hall of Fame, usually it's on a Saturday in the middle of the summer, but I guess this way of scheduling, they made it on a Wednesday in September. It's like, all right, whatever. And it wasn't the usual, again, ceremony. Usually there's a parade. They canceled that because there's all these people together. And kind of like the private parties and events and all of that, that was kind of put on the kibosh. So it was kind of pretty much the speech and some fans there. They estimate about 20,000 people came. Now, I think the last one in 2019, where I think where Moose and Mariano were inducted, that drew about 55,000. But the all-time high mark, they say, is when Tony Gwynn got in. That drew 70,000. But still, all the COVID stuff and people still not really comfortable coming back. 20,000 is still pretty good. I mean, that's definitely more than people that attend a Rays game. It might be triple the amount of people that attend a Rays game. So they came up for Jeter, and it was a big event. A lot of big names there. Michael Jordan was there. Patrick Ewing was there. Of course, Torre is going to be there. How can he not be there? And there's some teammates: CC Sabathia, Tino, Posada, of course. And Jeter himself, they actually, I don't know if they planned this on purpose or not, but his plaque will be right next to Mariano's, which happens to a few teammates in there. I mean, the Braves have Glavine and Maddox in there. I guess maybe they figured once Mo was in, they knew Jeter was going to come right up. So I guess they say, hey, let's keep that spot empty next to Jeter. And for Jeter, again, he referenced that one writer that didn't say it was a Hall of Fame on the first vote. I mean, Jeter would have been the second unanimous Hall of Fame inductee along with Mariano, but that wasn't the case. So it was 396 out of 397. There's that one writer, which we don't know who it is. Maybe that later will come out, that didn't say he should be on the Hall of Fame. But nevertheless, either way, so Mariano's number 1 with 100%, and Jeter's like number 2 with like 94%, whatever. So both Hall of Famers, and good for Jeter. Had the wife and kids out there and all that stuff, and it was just a good event, good feedback, and it's just, you don't see Jeter too much lately because he's so wrapped up in the Marlins. But it was good to come back and just have the fans chant him name, though. Derek Jeter, Derek Jeter. Now, Posada was at the ceremony, and kind of interesting with Posada, we know Mariano's definitely a Hall of Famer. Jeter's a Hall of Famer, no doubt. Andy Pettitte, it's just on the cusp there, and again, he's got over 250 wins and kind of impressive postseason resume in the rings. But of course, all the stuff and being friends with Roger Clemens and playing with the Sauce, he'll never get in. So that's not even an argument, even though technically he's kind of still on the ballot. Now, Posada, unfortunately, in his first season, didn't get the minimum required of 5% of votes to stay on the ballot. He only got 3.8%. So obviously, there's no chance for him to get elected to the Hall of Fame. Only chance he would get would be eligibility in 2027 when the Veterans Committee could kind of look at his career and make a judgment call, say, hey, you know what, he was past maybe one of the better players during the generation, or you know what, his numbers are good enough to be a Hall of Famer. So that would be his only shot. But it is an interesting, if you look at Posada's career, that does he have a case for a Hall of Fame? So probably not, because nothing really jumps out at you. But I'm just going to throw some stats a little bit to make you think that maybe there's an argument to be had. So if you look, Posada's career stats on the back of his baseball card, there's nothing really that jumps at you. None of the big milestones like 500 home runs, 3,000 hits, hitting over 300 batting average like that, or a number of Gold Gloves. In fact, he has 0 Gold Gloves. So you say, well, was he a Hall of Fame player? Well, you kind of have to consider his position, catcher, take a beating back there. And Posada had a long 17-year career. And you have to look at it as that, was he one of the best catchers during the era he played in? You would have to say, yeah. Now, the supreme, example is Pudge Rodriguez, who Hall of Fame himself inducted in 2017. And no doubt about it, just all the Gold Gloves and the hitting and everything like that. But with Posada, you have to consider that, of those 17 seasons, 13 of them, he would play in 100 or more games, so it wasn't like he just kind of hung on his whole career. He did play very well into his late 30s, even at age 37, hitting a batting average of .338 with 20 home runs and 90 RBIs. Not too bad for a 37-year-old, and he got another contract after that. So again, the last 2 years you saw a little bit of a decline, but it wasn't a situation where he was good for 10 years and then the last 6 years it was just him hanging on, trying to collect money and stats. Wasn't the case with Posada. And of course, you got to take into consideration, again, part of the core 4, up the middle, catcher, shortstop, center field. You always want to be strong up the middle. Posada was part of that. 4 World Series, 4 World Series championships, 6 trips to the World Series, and of course the 4 rings. That's got to mean for something. Not a great postseason hitter, but again, you got to be part of a great team to get to the postseason and get to the World Series to begin with. So all those should be considered. So the one thing that you might say with Posada that could, put him in a Hall of Fame conversation has been his OPS. That's on base plus slugging, which determines not only your ability to get on base, but your power hitting. Now, Posada for his career, 121%, which for a catcher is pretty good. Now, the average for the Major League Baseball player is considered 100, so Posada's 21 points above that. So let's just say you look at all the catches across baseball history that had a OPS of 120 or higher. Well, it would be Posada and then 7 other catchers who are all Hall of Famers, which Mike Piazza being number 1 with a 143 OPS. So that's one case of bait, but again, in terms of full body work, doesn't really probably get him in there, but this could show that, yes, he played a tough position, put up some pretty good stats, and again, was probably behind Pudge, or maybe someone else, probably the best catcher during his tenure in there. So something to be considered, and it's a very physical, brutal position playing catcher. You can't expect him to put up the stats of a first baseman or a right fielder. So maybe, again, when the Veterans Committee thing kicks in, a decade or 2 from now, maybe they'll give him that consideration the way they considered like a Harold Baines be a Hall of Famer. I would consider maybe Posada to be more Hall of Famer than Harold Baines, but anyway, that's an argument we had there. The only thing that really hurt Posada is that he kind of got a late start in his career. Funny enough that Pudge Rodriguez is 2 years younger than Posada, but Pudge Rodriguez kind of came on the scene, came on right away, and played 4 more seasons. He had a 21-year career versus Posada's 17. But with Posada, again, he really didn't become a full-time catcher until age 29, mainly because he was blocked in the way, because at the time the Yankees had Girardi as well as Leyritz as the backup, and kind of Posada was the third-wheeled young guy until finally Leyritz left, and then Posada came, Girardi's on the study, and then finally Girardi left, and it became Posada's job. By the time that happened, though, Posada probably lost 3 or 4 additional years where he could have put up some more stats. So very interesting to look at his career. Probably not a Hall of Famer, but the argument could be made, and hopefully the Veterans Committee does put him in at some point. And don't hold it against Posada that in 1996 he only had 1 hit, a game against the Milwaukee Brewers. But guess what? I was there to see it.